Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Today we have Christian Espinosa, who has a journey from Riverside, California to becoming a leading figure in cybersecurity, and it is a testament to his resilience, ambition, and transformation. Born into a challenging environment, Christian moved to Arkansas at 12, where he lived with his mother, who struggled with addiction and unemployment. His relentless pursuit of achievement saw him rise to VP position in cybersecurity and completing 23 Ironmans, 300 skydives and 200 scuba dives, and traveling 70 countries, even training with one of my favorite survival expert, Bear Grylls. Today he is a founder and CEO of Blue Goat Cyber. He has created a collaborative environment where brilliant business ideas are welcomed. He coaches high intelligent technical professionals to break down ego and master the soft skills necessary for true leadership. A best-selling author of The Smartest Person in the Room, Christian is a sought-after keynote speaker sharing his insights at cybersecurity events, technology conference, and personal development seminars. Thank you, Christian. Thank you so much for being on my show. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll go into the first question, which I ask all of my guests, is what does a business mindset mean to you?
So I think business and entrepreneurship is really personal development wrapped in the context of business. So to me, it means adapting to new challenges, looking at yourself, and growing consistently. I think a business is a reflection of the person running the business. So if the business is not growing, then you're not growing. So I think it's really about trying to be better every day than you are the previous day. It's just taking those steps and also having resilience. You're not going to get everything right. So having some of that resilience and being persistent as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That whole idea of growing, I know you've gone through a personal development journey, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But just for my audience, just delve into, because I've got my own view on this sort of iteration, getting better 1% every day, and then in a year you're 365% better than you were, and that idea. What's your idea of personal growth? How do people, what's the mindset to be able to get that right?
I think for me, the mindset is to let go of my ego and accept that I'm not always right. Like one of the ways that I grow is I reflect a lot on why I am where I am and what needs to change to get to where I want to go. And it's typically I'm in my own way. So it's a mindset shift that I have to do or change something that I've been doing and just think if I do more of it, I'm going to get more results, because you can only brute force something so long. It's often a strategy change. So to me, it's that reflection, and it's a hard thing to do sometimes because we often don't want to look at ourselves at that level and think, I'm responsible for my life. I have complete agency over it, and I'm here because of my decisions. So maybe I should change my mindset, the story I've told myself, and my decisions.
Yeah, that whole idea of dropping the ego and realizing that other people can do equally as well as you, if not better than you, is a massive thing. And I love Jocko Willick's description of just taking responsibility for yourself, and everything is your responsibility, which I find a very fascinating idea, because even if something is outside your control, how you respond to it is super important to be able to grow and be successful. Would you agree?
I agree. I've read Extreme Ownership and his other book as well. If you don't accept ownership of your life, you're just going to always be a victim of circumstance. And I think if we have a strong enough vision and we take agency and ownership of our life, then we're not going to be the victim of circumstance. A lot of people like to blame the economy, blame the politics, but the reality is you're in control of your life like 99.9%, if not 100%. And nobody else is coming to help you. You've got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, I would agree. Moving on, tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
I think my upbringing got me pretty far in life. I grew up in a very chaotic environment, in a single wide trailer, extreme poverty, drug addicted mother. The cops always showing up, lots of crime and jail time for my mom and stuff in a small town. I developed this extreme desire to get out of my circumstances, to rise above. And it may be to prove everyone in the town that I am capable of much more than they thought I would be. So I worked super hard to get to where I am and get out of my circumstances. And that mindset I developed was a me against the world mindset. And that got me pretty far. But like I talked about earlier about growing and developing, I realized at some point I was at a glass ceiling with that mindset. And I had to shift that mindset and become more like it's me with the world versus me against the world. Because the me against the world got me far, but it didn't get me to the next level. So I had to shift that.
Just delving into that sort of mentality, that sort of siege mentality, that sort of I'm fighting the world, I'm going to conquer the world, before that mindset shift, which I think was 2014. What is it, a destructive mentality to have that sort of siege mentality, would you say?
I don't think it's destructive. I don't think I would be where I am today without that mentality. It gets you pretty far. It got me pretty far achieving things. But it was also lonely because if I think it's me against the world, then I don't have trust in anybody. I don't have a team. When I was working for other people, doing solopreneur work, and I can only get so far. I can't do everything myself. As a solopreneur, you can scale your business to a certain degree. But I wanted to have a business with staff and grow and have a larger impact. So that meant I had to let go of some of that idea that I can do it better than everybody else and hire people that can do it better than me.
Are you a good hirer?
A good hirer?
Yeah. Because it's a hard thing. I think it's the hardest thing in business is actually hiring the right people, getting the.
I was probably the worst hirer to begin with. My first business, I hired people based on their technical aptitude and if they had certifications or a degree, and that was a mistake. I then realized almost all the problems I had in my first business were because of my hiring decisions and because I didn't have core values. So what I realized is all this friction I was having with my staff is because they didn't believe the same things I believed, like in ownership, like we talked about. That was one of my core values, or communicating clearly. So I shifted how I hired people and hired people that were aligned with my core values and that had people skills over technical skills. Because a lot of the problems I had were because my staff were super highly rationally intelligent, high IQ, but they had no EQ. And they would constantly upset clients by speaking over the client's head and trying to protect their identity of being, smarter than somebody else.
And that
so now I'm much better at hiring because I've made those changes. Yes.
So hiring people purely on experience or qualifications is something I learned, is that the attitude is much more important, and the skills can be taught, can be learnt, but the attitude of that person is so much more important than technical or qualifications.
Yeah, 100%. I like to say that people skills have an infinite life shelf, whereas technical skills have a finite life shelf. And if someone doesn't have a growth mindset, which is one of my core values as well, which we talk about growth in a business, then I didn't want them in my company. And I don't want them in my company now. That was something I had to really focus on, though, because a lot of people, you think they want to grow, but a lot of people want to stay exactly where they are and wonder why they're not getting promoted or why their life is not changing. And that was a hard thing for me to digest because I also believe in ownership. And I'm like, how come I can't influence this person in my company to want to grow to the next level? And I had to realize, not everyone wants to. They may say they want to, but they're not willing to do the things to do that's required.
Yeah, agree. What impact did the US Air Force have on you as a person?
We'll be back after a quick break.
When you think about propaganda, you probably think about Kim Jong-un and his funny little haircut. And you'd be exactly right. The podcast, This is Propaganda, doesn't want you to believe that. They want you to question the ads you see, the news you read, the brands you love. What they don't want you to question is that they are advertisers themselves, peddling the same tricks they claim you fall for to make a living. If you need something to boycott, look no further than this show. Don't listen to This is Propaganda.
It gave me perspective, and it got me out of Arkansas. Like I mentioned, I grew up very poor, so I got a scholarship to the Air Force Academy. And the first plane ride I ever took was the plane ride out of Arkansas, out of my childhood, to go to Colorado Springs to the Air Force Academy. And from there, I gained a new perspective because I was pretty smart in Arkansas. I was like number 2 in my high school. And when I went to the Air Force Academy, I was not that smart compared to everybody else. I had taken like Calculus 1 in Arkansas, and there were people had taken Calculus 4, had already gone to 2 years of college that were in my class at the Air Force Academy. So it made me realize that I thought I was pretty smart, but I'm not as smart, and there's a lot of people really striving to do great things out there, and I was grateful to be part of that environment.
So tell me about this. So you were an engineer and a CEO, and then you had a change in 2014. What made you rethink your approach on life?
And before 2014, I was doing like solopreneur or freelance work. I was teaching classes around the world, doing ethical hacking or penetration testing. And I just got bored with it. I value growth, and I thought, this is getting boring. Even though I was traveling and doing all this stuff, I thought that I wasn't having the impact I wanted to have, and it became mundane. So in 2014, I started my first cybersecurity business. Then I thought, I'll start a business, I'll hire people, it will force me to grow, and I'll have a greater impact on people and society.
And then let's fast forward to 2022 when you started Blue Goat Cyber. What was the inspiration about starting that business?
So I sold my first business in 2020 and exited the parent company. And then I originally was not going to start a new cybersecurity business. I was going to get out of cybersecurity because I was getting frustrated with it. But I was talking to a friend of mine, a couple friends of mine, and they're like, you've already got 20 plus years of experience. You've already built one cybersecurity business. Why not take all that experience and what you learned and put it into a different one? And you'll probably scale it much faster, and it should go much smoother. And they were right. So that's what I did.
So tell me what you specialize in, because you do specialize. Like, what's the differentiation for you in the market, in cybersecurity market?
So my company, Blue Goat Cyber, specializes in medical device cybersecurity. So we've niched it down to that specific space and that specific market, which I feel it's a lot more challenging than like general cybersecurity, but it's a market that I am firmly behind and believe in, because there's been a lot of advances in healthcare, and I don't want those advances to be rolled back due to some cyber criminal hacking into medical devices.
So what made you think about, like, why niche down into medical devices? You said because you didn't want them to, but what made you say, I want to go into medical devices cybersecurity?
So I did medical device cybersecurity with my first business. That was one of the things we did, but we also did auditing, training, and a bunch of other things. It wasn't our focus. And then when I sold the business, the company I sold it to wanted more of the compliance side of what we did and didn't want to focus on the medical device sectors much. So before I started this business, the new business, Blue Goat Cyber, I almost died. I went to the hospital. I had blood clots, and there were 6 of them in my left leg. And fortunately, they were able to diagnose it pretty quickly, and a medical device was involved. So I thought, this is interesting. I sold my business, and now I'm thinking about what to do. I'm in the hospital, a medical device to save my life, basically. So maybe I should start a new business and take that line of business from my previous company and focus on that.
So how, because you're a very fit person, you've, as I said in the intro, all of the marathons and ultra marathons, and how did you end up with blood clots?
I think there's a couple contributing factors. I got the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, which is attributed to blood clots. And I literally felt trapped in my life at that point, which I think manifested it as well. I was in a weird relationship. This was during COVID. The parent company, I had some friction with them. They wouldn't let me promote my book anymore or sell my course I did on my secure methodology. I couldn't sell the stock in the parent company while I was with the parent company. So there's all these like things that were weighing me down. And
Sure.
I think that and probably the vaccine is just the perfect storm, really.
How long did it take you to recover?
Probably a year. So I took blood thinners for a while. And when I got the blood clots, my life was pretty much over, I thought. I went through a pretty big bout of depression because I couldn't run, I couldn't fly, I couldn't hike, I couldn't do anything but sit on the couch, basically. Otherwise, I might have a new clot form and die. I had to go through this transformation with the blood thinners, and I remember looking at them one day, and I'm like, I just look in the bottle, and I couldn't get insurance either because I had a pre-existing condition, so I was paying like $600 a month for these blood thinners, which are made by the same company that gave me the vaccine, ironically. So I just looked at them one day. I'm like, I just threw them across the room, and I'm like, I'm not taking these anymore. I went and got every single blood test I could get. I went and did NAD plus therapy. I did a bunch of things to reclaim my health. And there was never anything in my original records from when I had the blood clots that said why I got the blood clots. Nobody could tell me. And nobody's going to say it's a vaccine either. And I think maybe I manifested some of it. But yeah, now I don't take blood thinners. I monitor my blood. I also had a Doppler ultrasound done on my leg to make sure there's no remaining clots. And I've just been very cognizant about reclaiming my health. And I've done a half Ironman triathlon, my comeback race. I've hiked the Grand Canyon. I've done things that there for a while I thought I would never do again.
And what has been the inspiration to do all of hiking and obviously health reasons, but like your scuba diving and jumping out of planes? How are you driven to doing those, they call them extreme sports, but those types of sporting activities?
I don't want to live a boring life. I want to do exciting things. So, not everyone's idea of fun is jumping out of an airplane. To me, that I did in the military 5 times. I did free fall. And I just decided I wanted to go do skydiving. So I did that and did mass 300 jumps. I would go to the World Free Fall Convention and jump out of hot air balloons, biplanes, helicopters, jets, a little bit of everything. And it was just something that was like super exciting. There's always something new to learn. Like people, if you just fall like a certain way, it's pretty simple. But if you like try to stand while you're in the air or like dive, it's like just a little bit of movement of your hand will cause you to spin and things. So it's always something cool to do, to learn, and it's camaraderie as well. You have a group of people that are from all walks of life. You could have a lawyer, a college student, a doctor, and we're all like have the same passion for jumping. So just getting out there and doing new things. And I had this huge appetite for not sitting still, I guess. I want to always do something. Like right now, I'm into karting, go-karting. And I used to think go-karting looks stupid, but then I started doing it. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff to learn here. It's exhilarating. And there's all these different types of karts you drive. And it's like a miniature F1 kind of race, really. So yeah, I just like doing things that I feel like I'm a participant in. I don't like to spectate too much. I like to be out there doing things.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
The craziest thing I've ever done is probably this thing called, it was a canyon dive in Switzerland where there's like this box canyon and there's a cable going across the box canyon. And on the other side, you have a cable attached to that cable and you jump in the canyon and the cable gives a little bit, but you swing all the way to the other side. And I'm a fairly big guy, like about 230 pounds. And the Swiss guy told me, he said, you need to be careful because you're big and you might hit the wall on the other side. So just be prepared. And I was freaked out about it, but I did it. And it was probably the only thing I've ever done where I actually was so scared I made some uncontrollable noise. Like it just came out. And fortunately, I didn't hit the wall on the other side and I survived that. But that was probably the craziest thing I've done.
Wow. Wow. We'll come back to your extreme sports, but let's get back into Blue Goat Cyber. You talk about emotional intelligence. How do you balance the technical expertise that's needed in cybersecurity and also with the emotional intelligence of your employees in your company?
I think the first part is to hire people that value the emotional intelligence and the people skills. In my first company, I didn't do that. And to hire people that meet my core values as well, so they have a growth mindset. The challenges I had in the first company, when I looked at the challenges, they were because my staff didn't have that emotional intelligence. They would talk over clients' heads, make clients feel not appreciated, make them feel stupid because they're trying to protect their identity. So I am very cognizant about who I hire and make sure that they are not those sort of people. I'd rather have somebody not as technically capable than someone that is super technically capable that makes everyone feel stupid around them.
But it's a very technical area of business. I'm no way an expert in cybersecurity at all, but when looking at the different certificates that you have, you're extremely knowledgeable in information system security, as a security officer, project management, high performance coach, ethical hacker, risk and information systems control. Your business needs a technical person to be able to do that. They have to, I understand they have to be emotionally intelligent and fit your core values, which I want to talk about your core values, but you do need to be highly technical to be successful in cybersecurity. Is that right?
It depends on your role in cybersecurity. There's a lot of misconceptions about cybersecurity. If you do auditing, you don't really need to be that technical. If you do penetration testing or ethical hacking, you certainly need to be very technical, and you need to learn new things all the time. So we do medical device cybersecurity, so my team has to be very technical. We also do documentation for FDA submissions, which is a little bit less technical, but I have to have someone that understands how to write the documentation and how to take results from a penetration test and put that into a report as well. I've been fortunate enough to hire the right people. And one of the people I hired, I think when I hired him, he was maybe 19 or 20. He had crystal clear clarity on what he wanted to do in life. And I value somebody that knows where they want to be in 5 years or 10 years or even 3 years. That is very valuable to me. Because I know they got their focus, where it is and what they're driven to do, versus a lot of people are just like dipping their toe in the water. They're unsure. And from my experience, those people don't make good teammates.
So talk to me about ethical hacking, because a friend of mine was in cybersecurity in the physical area, and he was experimenting, trying to get into companies and blagging to be able to get into companies' secure systems, and it was part of his testing. Just talk me through your view and what you do when it comes to ethical hacking on your business and your life.
So we, like with medical devices, we try to break into the device just like an adversary would. So if there's a Bluetooth connection, we try every means possible to break in through that Bluetooth connection. If there's an RFID connection, same thing. If there's a web application, we try to break into it. And if we are able to break into it, we see how much damage we can do. But we do it to a non-operational device. And we do it so we are able to educate the device manufacturer or the software developers of the device how to plug these holes so the device is safe for patient use.
And there's people in your team who just do this, are there?
Yes, that's all they do. Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking to find ways of being able to hack into the medical device to make it faulty. I suppose one of the questions is, who are the main sort of culprits for cybersecurity? Obviously, you hear about China and Russia hacking into systems, but who is your main adversary when you're dealing with cybersecurity relating to medical devices?
So there's two different types of really attacks. There's a directed attack, which is very specific. Dick Cheney in the U.S., for instance, had his pacemaker taken out because there was a threat where a nation state, an enemy, could attack his pacemaker wirelessly and shock him to death. So that's a directed attack. The bigger threat really is the non-directed attacks. That's where you've got malicious software just propagating, and if it hits a hospital, it's going to go through the hospital, and it's going to hit multiple vulnerable devices. So there's a medical device, like a drug infusion pump, that is connected to the hospital network. That malicious software might inadvertently affect that device. And if that device it causes it to act in a way where it increases the flow rate of a drug, such as morphine, now you can kill the patient. So that's the bigger threat, is that the things that are non-directed, they're just propagating. It could be ransomware, whatever means the cyber criminal is using to make money. Those are the bigger threats.
And where are they coming from? Is it domestic in the US, or is it global threats coming?
It's global. A lot of them come from Russia or China or North Korea or any country where they're trying to make money through cybercrime, really. And some of them are domestic as well, obviously, but most of them are from the countries I mentioned.
And is politics and regulation keeping up with where it needs to be when it comes to cybersecurity?
No, nobody's keeping up where it needs to be. We focused on all the wrong things, in my opinion. The things we focus on, people try to do like 100 things on a 100-point checklist. They try to do them all. And the reality is no organization has the resources to do all 100. So the list needs to be prioritized by risk and what reduces the risk the most. And then most of the time, if you can do like the top 6 things on that list and you do those very well, like 100%, you're going to be much more secure than trying to do 100 things like 50% each.
And is that's a fault in the organization? So is that healthcare organizations are thinking that it's better to do, like, instead of focusing in on the top, as you said, the top 6 or the top 10 things that need to be done? Or is it healthcare organizations in the US which are trying to spread to as wide a variety that they can cover? Are healthcare organizations doing this incredibly bad? Is this why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, healthcare organizations are notoriously unsecure. Whenever we've tested a healthcare provider, we've been able to get access to pretty much everything, as long as we're able to use a broad range of tactics. Medical devices, like our clients, are the medical device manufacturers. And the way we look at it, the medical device is a trusted device. So we test every way into that device. So it shows up trusted, but it's going to be put in an untrusted environment, which is the hospital or healthcare provider. That we consider that a hostile environment, even though it's supposedly protected. But from our perspective, all we can control is the security of the medical device, which is going to end up in a hostile environment because we have no control over that environment.
So why are healthcare providers not great at
I think There's a couple reasons. One is the complexity of the environment. You've got a lot of different devices connected, and sometimes they don't segment the devices very well. That's one of the reasons, is the complexity. Another reason is they don't hire the right people to fix their environment. And what I mean by that is if you have the right staff, you prioritize what needs to be fixed. And what happens, though, is they try to fix everything. And you can't fix everything. You got to know these are the high-risk devices. This is where they are. And we need to prioritize fixing them over everything else. The PC, like the PC and the kiosk doesn't matter necessarily. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of the big factors. And then the other one is, like in the U.S., hospitals are open 24 hours. So anybody can walk in there. So there's that aspect as well. You can't like lock down the hospital. So if you have people walking into a patient room, they could plug a device in to a USB port. They could connect to the wireless network. They could plug into an Ethernet port. So it's notoriously, from a physical security perspective, it's not feasible to lock the hospital down. And that if we're able to use like a physical tactic, we're always able to get into a hospital. If we're able to connect to the Wi-Fi, we can get access to the Wi-Fi, and then from there, get access to medical devices. Sometimes we can go to the chapel at the hospital and plug into an Ethernet port and get access to the internal environment. There's things that just make hospitals and healthcare providers very unsecure.
And are the people that are dealing with this, looking after this in healthcare providers, are these people that have grown up in a hospital environment, or are these people that have spent time at a company like yours?
So there's people that, like in a hospital, you've primarily got doctors and nurses and techs. They don't know anything about cybersecurity. And you've got a small cybersecurity staff that tries to do the cybersecurity. My girlfriend is a nurse, and she tells me things a lot, and I'm totally surprised that they don't have this stuff resolved. But I'm not surprised because at the same time, my company's broken into hospitals doing the same things that she says they do at her hospital, taking advantage of what she says they do or don't do. And I think at the end of the day, it's a balance of convenience as well. There's always like security versus convenience. And if you have to log onto a system like three types of authentication, and this system is required to help a patient and it's critical, then that's going to delay the care to the patient. And then if a hospital as well, they're always understaffed. So a nurse might forget to lock her screen because she has to go see a patient that just rang a bell. So it's this combination of these factors that just make it unsecure. And there's also, I think cybersecurity people, they have this very weird view of the world. They only see the world through their own lens, typically, versus here's the environment, here's the risk. How do we reduce the risk for that environment where it works for the people in the environment that are actually doing the job? Because there would be no need for cybersecurity if it wasn't for other industries. And I think a lot of cybersecurity professionals forget that and have this like egocentric view about cybersecurity.
And so growing your business, are you looking to work with more healthcare providers to be able to go in and do the analysis, understand their risk, and then what, you give a report to them that you send to them? Is that how the business works?
So right now we focus on medical device manufacturers. So the device manufacturer, in order to sell the device in the United States, it has to be FDA approved. The FDA has a long list of requirements for cybersecurity. So we help the device manufacturer with all the testing of the device, the penetration testing, look at the software, look at the source code, as well as the documentation of the risk. And it's the same thing in the EU and the UK. Before a device can be sold in the market, it has to go through a lot of scrutiny and get cleared by the EU MDR or the FDA or whatever the regulatory body is. So that's what we do. We help the device manufacturer secure the device and get it approved through whichever the governing organization is.
Mm. And how are you looking to grow this business?
I'm looking to take over this market is my goal, to become the market leader in this space.
And what are the strategies that you're doing to get to that journey?
Yeah, so the first strategy is I believe I've niched down to a blue ocean strategy. I don't think there's a lot of competitors in my space, my niche space. There's a lot of cybersecurity competitors in general, but very few do what we do because it's very specialized and very challenging, and it's an industry you have to really learn a lot. Medical devices have a lot of acronyms, and the whole space has got more acronyms than cybersecurity. So it's like a confluence of acronyms sometimes, and terminology and vernacular. So there's that niching down to a blue ocean. That is part of it. And then I personally worked on it because I'm good at it, about 4.5 months straight, like 15 hours a day, to get inbound leads on our website. That's through search engine optimization, through Google Ads tweaking, which requires constant tweaking. Yeah. And that has resulted in a lot of leads. And then the next strategy is the brand awareness. So we started going to conferences, attending them. I'm going to be speaking at conferences as well to get our brand out there. We'll have a booth. We'll do the networking. And I'm also writing a book on medical device cybersecurity. I'm working on that now and should have that done in August. So I'm going to use that to promote my business as well, to establish us as the market leaders, the authority in this space.
What's your sales team? So you talked a lot about marketing and generating the leads. How have you built and developed your sales team?
So I've got a team. It's myself and 2 other people, really. I've got things very efficient, so I can scale it. I spend a lot of time training my main salesperson, and we spend a lot of time tweaking our sales process. So when a prospect comes to us, we have messaging, we have our value proposition, we understand their needs and where they are and try to meet them where they are and what their timeline is. We have all that dialed in, and we're constantly, tweaking it, obviously.
Sure.
Our close rate is pretty decent. It's above 50%. And if I can get a little higher, that's great. But yeah, it's really just focusing on, once we get the lead, which takes a lot of effort to get the lead, what can we do to maximize our conversion of that lead to a sale?
And your growth strategy, is that based on hiring more people, specialists, or hiring more people to help with your marketing or your sales? What's the sort of direction for the business? Is it more specialists or is it more business people?
So it's both. In a business, like sales is up, your delivery, there's never balance. It's hard to balance
Sure.
exactly sales and delivery.
Yeah.
So it's both. And we know with our current team, like how many inbound leads we can handle. And we also know how many ongoing projects we can handle with the current team. So we know what the numbers are. And when we get to the capacity of those numbers, then we have people we've already scoped out to bring onto the team.
And you talked about conferences. What's been your experience so far at speaking at these conferences? Is it generating leads? Because I always have I like going to podcast conferences because you get to meet new people, old people that you've known for a long time. It's a very good way of being able to do that. But have you found that element of your marketing in the conference style being a successful advocate for your business?
So right now, we've only attended a conference. I haven't spoke at a medical device conference yet. I've spoken at other conferences before, but not at a medical device conference. It's a very different type of market than like a cybersecurity conference or a healthcare conference. Medical device or med tech is very niche. So it's hard to get a speaker spot. And I've got a couple, 3 of them, 2 in October and then 1 in next year, where I'll be speaking and hosting a roundtable. But the one we attended not too long ago in Boston, just the relationships and the networking is very valuable, because the larger your network and the more people know about your brand and what you do, when a need does come up for someone that needs their device cybersecurity checked for FDA clearance, they may reach out to us. And that's the plan. And then one of the conferences we're going to, my strategy at that one is this conference is for a lot of startups that need VC funding. So in medical device, the medical device space, you have people with these brilliant ideas, but to bring the idea to market, they need funding.
Yep.
And VCs do this, right? Venture capitalists. So my strategy, if I can talk to the venture capitalist that have a portfolio of medical device companies, then I can get introduced to that whole portfolio. So that's one of the things I'm looking at as well. I'm always looking for better ways to scale the business and to get the leads and to get it to talk to the right people.
What are some of the common concerns that your clients face that you're able to help them with?
The biggest concern is they don't know what they don't know. And they often come to us, unfortunately, late in the game. So when they've got the product pretty much ready and all of a sudden someone says, hey, we need to get this thing checked for cybersecurity, then they come to us. Ideally, they come to us much further, much further down the road or much prior during the development cycle, but sometimes it's late. And then they have a 2-month submission deadline by the time they talk to us. So we're going to find stuff. And the challenge is, can they fix that stuff quickly enough and us retest it to verify it's fixed, and they still meet their timeline? And that rarely happens. They rarely meet the timeline because we're always going to find something. If the client comes to us sooner, like they're still developing the software, as they're developing it, we do iterative testing, then they're going to have security built into it versus baked onto it at the end. And that will help them meet their timeline a lot smoother. And it actually costs less. So the sooner they come to us, the less it costs and the less risk to them because they can understand where they stand from a cybersecurity perspective very early on.
So in a way, you're needing to educate the medical device companies. That's part
100%,
of your
yeah.
marketing strategy is the education piece.
100%. And one of the challenges in my industry, it doesn't matter if it's medical device or a different industry that we're supporting. The challenge is software developers typically do not understand cybersecurity. So they write the code to function properly, to look good for the user experience, but they don't know anything about cybersecurity. So notoriously, we're getting code produced that has bugs in it that a hacker can exploit. And half the time, when we talk to a software developer, they think we're making things up. There's no way you could actually take over the system that way. So we have to show them that this is how we did it. This is the buffer we overflowed. This is the code we injected. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. And then they go fix it. So if we establish security in these high school programs for coding, these coding academies, college degrees where you can become a computer programmer, if we integrated security in that, I think we'd have less problems.
But why is that not happening? Surely cybersecurity is becoming more and more important, so much more reliant on technology. Why aren't the coding community, even the academies, why are they not focusing on cybersecurity enough?
There's a slow movement. The movement's starting to get some traction where it's happening more so now. But if you graduated and learned your coding like 7 years ago, nobody talked about cybersecurity really. So it's starting to happen now where we have things like the secure software development lifecycle. Before it was just the software development lifecycle, the SDLC, but now it's the SSDLC, the secure software development lifecycle. So we consider security in the whole lifecycle of our software development. So we're migrating that way. It's just been a slow adoption by a lot of people.
What's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years for you and your business?
Ideally, I 10x my business every year. And thinking in the lines of 10xing forces you to think differently, in my opinion, and do things differently. So that's my plan.
Okay, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all my guests. They're quickfire questions. They don't need a quickfire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
The best decision I made was to quit my corporate 9-to-5 job.
Why was that? I 100% agree. I quit mine, so I'm with you on this. I'm just want to understand your experience.
I was having a lot of friction with the CEO of the company, and it was driving me nuts. And I quit this job without having another job lined up. And I was just like, my mental sanity was more important than the job. They could have offered me like millions of dollars, I wouldn't have stayed. But when I did that, it was like a mindset shift. Something shifted in me, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. And that's when I started solopreneur work, freelance work. And then that's eventually turned into my first company and now my second company. So without making that decision, I wouldn't be where I am now. I'd still be working a 9-to-5 job. I'd be comfortable, but I wouldn't feel like the zest for life or what I'm doing now. Yeah. I would just be clocking in, clocking out and getting a paycheck and, living a comfortable life. But I prefer to live more of a exciting and risk-taking life.
Yeah, I just did a post today on LinkedIn which was about the bravery of entrepreneurs. I spoke to someone who's got a very successful career as an employee. He's doing really well, but he said to me on Saturday, he said, you leaving your security of a corporate job and doing your own thing, there is an element of a different mindset, a bravery that you have by doing things, by creating value, by making things is something that is not for everyone. And I think we should all celebrate that. All of us that are listening here and watching that are running their own businesses, starting their own businesses, we should celebrate it more, that there are people out there that are taking risks, that are building things, that are creating things that can be valuable. What's your thoughts?
I agree. And the irony is, when I started my own thing, people thought I was crazy, and they're trying to talk me back into going into corporate world. And, because I got these degree and I got these certifications and I can make a lot of money and play it safe. And I'm like, I don't want to play it safe anymore. That might work for you, and that's fine. It doesn't work for me. I'm ready to take some risk. I'm really ready to take ownership and agency over my own life and see what happens. The security should come from within, not from without, the external. And we like to think we have a secure job until you get laid off, and now what? There's no guarantee your employer's not going to terminate you or your employer's going to stay in business. The only thing we have control over is ourselves, and the more security we can develop internally, the better. The best investment is on ourselves and our own skill set, in my opinion.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely brilliant. Next question: what's the best piece of advice you've been given?
I've been given lots of good advice. Probably the best piece of advice is to tune into myself. And I don't know where I heard that advice, but when I try to make a big decision, I try to silence all the external dialogue and just sit quietly with myself and ask myself the question. And then the answer always comes to me very quickly. And when I follow that answer, it's always right. Sometimes I will logically try to say, I'm not going to do that. Why is the voice in my head tell me to do this? And when I logically rationalize some other path, it's always been wrong. So I'm trying to get better at listening to that inner voice. Yeah.
Amazing. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I would say probably my coach I've had my life. I've had a high performance coach for about 4 years now, maybe 5. And just having someone give you the perspective outside your box is very useful for me. We're like a jar, and we can't read our own label that's on the jar. But somebody else external to you can read that and tell you hey, you said this week, you said this last week, you said this the next week. You have this pattern that we often don't see ourselves. I think it's very useful to have an outside person that can look at your life and help you.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Tell me about a regret that you have.
One regret I have, and I wrote about this in my latest book, is my grandfather was dying. I went home from college. It was over Christmas, and he was in the hospital. He had a heart attack. And I was too shy or scared of what people would think, because it's very noisy. There's nurses, there are family members there. that I didn't say anything to him. He was unconscious or even grab his hand or do anything. And I went back to the academy, to college. Yeah, and he died a few days later.
So sorry. Yeah, bereavement is incredibly difficult. I've had multiple bereavements over the last few years. It's hard, and we all go through it in different ways. That's something that I've learned from my experience, is there's different ways to express what you're going through, and people do it in different ways, and having people around you to support you. I love the idea. I think it was a Simon Sinek quote where he said, when you've got a friend that's in trouble, whatever, depression, bereavement, just sit in the mud with them. Don't try and fix it. Don't try and tell them what they should do. Just sit in the mud with them. And I found that I had people, when I lost my father, my mother, my brother, and my grandfather literally in 2 or 3 years, having people around me that just sat with me, non-judgmental, just being there with you is incredibly important. So hopefully you had people around you that helped you.
Yeah, it was really, for me, not telling my grandfather I loved him or what he meant to me when I had the opportunity. Sure. Being too afraid. It was my ego was in the way, like thinking, what are the nurses going to think? What is my family going to think? And it was just very selfish. And I try not to do that anymore. I try to tell people how I feel, thinking it might be the last time I see them. Yeah, because I don't want to have the same regrets. I try to do my best to learn from those things.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have. What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of, there's a lot of things. I think escaping my childhood is probably one of the biggest ones. I could have became a statistic and followed the same path as most of my family, but I chose a different path, the road less traveled, and I somehow made it. So I'm proud of that.
You should be. 100% you should be. Why do you do what you do?
I want to help with my company, device manufacturers, get their innovative solution to the market in a secure manner. I want to help advance healthcare. And I want to grow people on my team, so help them grow and develop and embrace their dreams and what they want to do as well. So it's important to me to be the best leader I can for myself, number one, but then also for people that are on my team. Because people all have things they want to do in life. And if I can help someone uncover like what they really want to do and develop the courage to take that first step and even encourage them on that journey, that's valuable to me.
100%. What does legacy mean to you?
It kind of ties in what I was just talking about. I want to have an impact where people are better off having known me, having read my book, having listened to a podcast, having interacted with me, having to worked with me, or companies that have worked with me. I've left them in a better place before they interacted with me. And change their life for the better. That would be the legacy I want to leave.
Amazing. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or they've got any questions for you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website, christianespinosa.com, or my company, cyber.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and most of the social media. And my books are available on Amazon and Audible and pretty much any bookseller.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Christian. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you in a world where I think people don't know enough about. And I think hopefully coming on podcasts, you'll be able to get that message out to people that it is super important and we should be considering it in all levels of business, from a solopreneur up to a large corporate and everything in between. So thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Mark. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.